All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're going to dive into something kind of wild.
Yeah, this one's pretty out there.
We're talking about using satellite images to predict the stock market.
You heard that right.
You sent this research paper over, and wow, this is not what I was expecting.
It's amazing what you can find just from looking at satellite images, right? And the crazy thing is, this research uses data that's publicly available. Anyone can go and look at this.
Hold on. From the top. Satellite images for the stock market. How?
Okay, so you know how people use those financial indicators?
You mean like those ratios and dividends?
Exactly, like dividend yields and price to earnings ratios, all that stuff.
Yeah, but those never really seem to work.
Yeah, they're not great. They mostly tell you about the past, not the future.
Right.
So this research, it uses something called alternative data.
Alternative data?
Yeah. And satellite imagery is a great example.
So instead of looking at, like, the reports and stuff, we're looking at where things are moving.
Yeah, the actual stuff.
Okay. But why shipping containers specifically? Why not just, like, all the cargo ships?
But think about it, 90% of all the stuff that isn't like oil or grain, all that non-bulk stuff, it's all shipped in those containers.
So more containers probably means more buying and selling?
Yeah. It's a good way to see how much is actually happening in the global economy.
Thank you for tuning in to Quantopian's Quant Radio, your AI-driven podcast exploring everything related to quantitative finance. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on future releases. For more quant-focused content, join us at community.quantopian.com. There you can explore a wealth of resources, connect with fellow quants, engage in insightful discussions, and enhance your skills through our extensive range of online courses. Quant Radio is intended to help people develop their knowledge and skills in quant finance. This podcast is not intended to provide investment advice. And now, back to the episode.
Interesting. So how does this work? How do they use these images?
So these researchers, they used a special kind of program, a unit deep learning model.
Okay. And what is that in English?
Basically, it's like a really, really smart computer program. They showed it thousands and thousands of pictures. Taught it to spot and count all the shipping containers.
So nobody had to actually count all those tiny boxes?
Nope. This program did all the work. Yeah. And get this, they fed it something like 83,000 different satellite pictures.
83,000.
Of the busiest ports all over the world, covering 4 years of activity.
That's a lot of containers. So did it work? Did they find anything?
They trained it on images from 2017.
2017.
Yeah, so there was no way it could know what happened after that.
Yeah.
No peeking into the future.
Smart.
Right. That way, what it found was totally independent.
Okay, so what did it find? Did this whole container counting thing actually work?
It actually worked, like really well.
No way. So tell me, what kind of results are we talking about here?
Okay, so they found a strong connection between the changes in those container numbers and how the stock market did in 27 different countries.
Hold on. You're telling me just from looking at pictures, space pictures, you can figure out how the stock market's going to do in most of the world.
That's what the research says. And get this, if you had invested just based on these containers, you could have made, on average, over 16% per year.
16% every year. Sign me up. Forget Wall Street. I'm getting a telescope.
Well, it's not that simple.
Right, of course.
But it's still pretty amazing. And it gets even weirder.
Weirder? How?
So remember when COVID hit and everything went crazy? Supply chains, all that?
Yeah, it was a mess.
Well, the model, it got even better at predicting the market during that time, especially in the U.S. and Europe.
Oh, wow. So it's like it picked up on all that chaos just from the containers.
Exactly. All those disruptions, the model saw them coming just by looking at how the container traffic was changing.
That's kind of creepy. Like it knows something we don't.
Well, it just shows how powerful this kind of analysis can be.
Okay, but how does looking at containers, like tell us about the actual economy? That's what really matters, right?
You're right. It's not just about predicting the market. It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Right.
And they found that. There's a connection there, too, between the container volume and how much the economy is actually producing.
So more containers, more stuff being made and sold.
Exactly. It's a good sign.
So everybody wins.
Well, not quite. There's a catch. It turns out that when the number of containers gets really high, like really high, it can actually mean the economy might slow down a bit later on.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a warning sign.
Kinda, yeah. Like it's about to hit a bottleneck or something.
Wow. So we've got all this information out there, all this data, and it's telling us things if we know how to listen.
That's what this whole alternative data thing is all about. It's not just about the stock market. It's about finding new ways to understand the world around us, using information that's already out there.
So what else is there? Besides satellite images, I mean...
Oh, tons of stuff. Think about all the data from social media, credit card transactions, even the weather.
The weather?
Yeah, like how weather patterns affect certain businesses. You wouldn't believe it.
Huh. So instead of just looking at what companies are saying, we're like spying on their customers.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all about finding those hidden connections, those patterns that tell us something new.
So how can people even use this? It sounds complicated.
It can be. But there are platforms out there, tools you can use to access this data and make sense of it.
So you don't need to be like a computer whiz to do this.
Not at all. It's becoming more accessible all the time.
That's pretty cool. So anyone could be like a data detective.
Exactly. But just like a detective, you got to be smart about it.
What do you mean?
Not all data is created equal. You got to know what to look for, how to tell if it's actually going to be useful.
So how do you do that? What should people look for? Give us the insider tips.
Well, first, you got to think about what you're actually trying to do. What are your goals?
Okay, so like if I'm only investing in, say, green energy companies.
Exactly. You don't need to be looking at, like, foot traffic data for fast food restaurants, right?
Makes sense. So find data that actually matters for what you're investing in.
Yeah. It's all about context. And you got to make sure it's good data, too. Accurate, trustworthy.
So how can you tell?
Look at where it's coming from. Is it a reliable source? Has anybody checked it? And is it up to date?
Right, because old news won't help you much.
Exactly. You need that fresh data. And one more thing.
Okay.
Don't forget about the cost. Some of this data can be expensive.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
So you got to weigh it up. Is it worth the price?
Right, because if you're spending more on the data than you're making on your investments, that's not a good look.
Exactly. So be smart about it. Do your research. And don't be afraid to experiment a little.
I like it. So we've talked about why this stuff is important, how it can give us this whole new perspective on the market.
Right, it's like a whole new toolbox for investors.
But what's next? Where do you see this going in the future?
Oh, that's the exciting part. With all the technology we have now, AI and all that, who knows what we'll be able to do?
Like, imagine being able to read people's minds about what stocks they're going to buy next.
Well, maybe not quite that far. But imagine analyzing millions of tweets instantly, understanding how people feel about a company.
Or like using AI to find those patterns that are too complicated for us to even see.
Exactly. We're just scratching the surface here.
It's like a whole new world of investing is opening up.
And the best part is, you don't need to be a Wall Street genius to take advantage of it. Just be curious, keep learning, and you'll be surprised what you can find.
That's a great takeaway. So as everyone listening, next time you see something new, some new technology or a weird piece of information, don't just ignore it. Think about it. Could this be valuable? Could it change how you see things?
Yeah. Keep those eyes peeled, those minds open. You never know what might spark the next big idea.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.